Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to another Top 10 Wednesday, or Top 10's Day if you'd prefer. With the Pet Sematary reboot coming out this weekend, that alongside It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 releasing later this year, ushering in a brand new Stephen King rebooted universe, I figured today we should be counting down the top 10 franchises that need a reboot. Reboot is typically a cringeworthy word to most audiences, but the franchises that we will be looking at today I believe could thrive if put into the right hands and given a second chance. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. Coming in at number 10 is going to be Robocop. Now, the original Robocop is looked back on as one of the best sci-fi action movies, quite possibly ever, right up there alongside Terminator, Back to the Future. Sadly though, after that first movie, he didn't really get much love after that. The sequel was no good, and then the star, Peter Weller, dropped out, and then the third one was even worse. We did get an attempted reboot back in 2014, I'm not quite sure why, because I watched it once and it's completely forgettable. There have been rumors going around that director Neil Blomkamp would be helming a Robocop reboot, although that seems like it may have possibly been swept under the rug. I really do hope not. In my mind, Neil Blomkamp is 3 for 3, that being District 9, Elysium, and Chappie, and I know that this guy could absolutely kill it. They would have to allow it to be the hard R that it deserves, and not the PG-13 one that we got back a few years ago. Neil Blomkamp works best with the R rating, and Robocop works best with the R rating. Let's let these two team up, and let's see some magic. Coming in at number 9 is going to be the Dark Tower series. Yes, I believe these books deserve a spot in this new Stephen King universe. We already had one of them. We had literally The Dark Tower. It was titled like a year or two ago, and it was trash. I mean, how do you mess that up? You had Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey starring, but somehow they managed to just not hit the mark whatsoever. The movie just pulls bits and pieces out from every book, crams it all into one story, and you got nonsense. I'm really hoping that we can get a writer-director combo along with a few solid stars and bring this series the adaptation that it truly deserves. It is a great piece of work. It is arguably Stephen King's magnum opus of a series, and I really hope that it is done justice soon. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Ghost Rider. We've had 2 attempts now at Ghost Rider, both starring Nicolas Cage, but they were both trash. The first one was just really cheesy, corny, over the top, and the second one was directed by Neville Dean and Taylor, and we know what kind of movies those guys make. But Ghost Rider is one of the most badass superheroes, well, anti-heroes there is. He's a flaming skeleton on a motorcycle that has a chain whip and a shotgun, and he's crazy, he's badass. Ghost Rider deserves his very grim and dark R-rated reboot, and I hope that he gets it. Coming in at number 7 is one that most of you probably won't expect to see on here, and that is National Treasure. Yes, the National Treasure movies that were once again starring Nick Cage. National Treasure had the chance to be something really special. I mean, we haven't had a great treasure hunting movie in a long time, and National Treasure could have been an even more grand and adult-oriented version of Goonies, and it just wasn't. You didn't have the lovable characters, the writing just wasn't that good, and doesn't hold up that well today. To me, it's a great idea, and with some better, more thought-provoking writing, and not having Nick Cage ham it up from beginning to end, I feel like we could have the next great adventure on our hands. Coming in at number 6 is going to be one that I'm sure we will be getting within the next few years, and that is the Fantastic Four. Marvel's original family has now had 3 big screen attempts, and none of which are any good whatsoever. The blend of clunky practical effects and really wonky CGI, as well as terrible writing and not always the best acting, really brought these movies down. I'm hoping that with the Fantastic Four now in the hands of the MCU, we can get a true version of these characters and get the proper versions of these characters. They deserve all the love that Marvel is about to give them, and I hope that it pays off. Coming in at number 5 is the X-Men. Not all the previous X-Men movies are bad, and we know that. Days of Future Past is great, First Class is great, X-Men and X2 are also both great, as well as Logan, but let's face it, the X-Men timeline is really why it needs a reboot. With so many different directors, so many different writers, there's just too many hands in this pot. It's led to this universe just being an absolute mess, and we have to leave it to the MCU to put it all in order. Give us true versions of these characters, give us one straightforward timeline that also links from time to time with other characters like the Fantastic Four and whatever's left of the Avengers after Endgame. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Transformers. Okay, yes, I know I'm kind of cheating on this one because we did just get Bumblebee, but hear me out. The reason that it ends up on this list is because Hasbro just can't seem to make their mind up. Originally they were like, no, it's not a reboot, it's still in the same continuity as the Bayformers movies. And then they were like, oh no, Bumblebee, it's a reboot. and now they're like, oh, we're getting a Bumblebee sequel, woohoo, it's a reboot, but you're also getting a sequel to Transformers: The Last Knight, so Bumblebee isn't a reboot, or is it like a side-by-side timeline, or I don't know. They don't know, so I don't know. Focus just on Bumblebee and expanding that universe. What I would truly like to see, of course, is a Bumblebee sequel, but that Cybertron sequence, mwah, amazing, and I would like to see a fully fleshed out trilogy, if not more, just solely based on Cybertron. So I'm hoping that Hasbro turns their brains back on and just say no to the Bayformers and yes to Bumblebee, and even more yes to Cybertron movies. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Resident Evil. The Resident Evil movies are finally done, or so we think anyway. Paul W.S. Anderson finally brought an end to his Resident Evil movie series with the final chapter, which was, in my mind, the worst one to date. But the shining glimmer of light that came out of it was that it was actually indeed the final chapter, which now leaves room for the series to be done properly. What we have to do is go back to the survival horror roots of the games. Make it something similar or a blend of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Don't Breathe with a bunch of zombies, and you have yourself a surefire hit. Coming in at 2 is Mortal Kombat. Paul W.S. Anderson again, and in the sequel, the same director that did Annabelle. So you know how both of those turned out, with this new wave of Mortal Kombat games being MKX, MK11, and hell, even MK9 was great. Really crazy good visuals with insane amounts of gore. That is what we need. I think director Gareth Evans from The Raid should be the one to helm this, get all of his actors back from that, because they actually know how to do real decent fighting and get those guys to duke it out. Of course, it would need a half-decent budget, because I would want it to look like the cinematic trailers that we got from these games. So of course, some real normal fighting, but then really over-the-top, gory, bone-crunching, crazy CGI awesomeness. And coming in at number 1 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As we know, the TMNT Michael Bay reboots are now gone. It is fair to say that these movies need a clean reboot. It ends up in the number 1 spot because the original television series holds a special place in my heart. So what we need is a new and true version of these characters that so many love. We have to have that trademark wit, not weird, dark, and gritty, and don't make them giant bodybuilding green monsters, okay? Either do it in the animation style of something like Into the Spider-Verse, or even Pixar animation if you can, DreamWorks, whatever, or make it live action, but don't make them look all weird and big and muscly, just like they were in the original cartoon. We need a live action, rebooted, well thought out, well acted, well executed version of the TMNT. So if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let me know what movie franchises do you think deserve to be rebooted. As always, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap.